After retiring from his job as an architect, Felix finds it hard to figure out what to do with his life. To keep himself busy and happy, he relies on a special virtual friend that his family doesn't know about. At a party to say goodbye to Felix, Hillary, the boss's daughter, gives a speech about him. But Felix doesn't seem very happy about retiring. Even so, he offers to help the company in the future. Before the party ends, Hillary gives Felix an expensive gift. Inside the gift, he finds a pair of special glasses called Augie. The people at the party explain that Augie is like a virtual friend who can keep Felix company and entertain him now that he has more free time. But Felix doesn't seem interested and says he has to leave for his daughter's birthday celebration, so he leaves the party. Later, during dinner with his wife and daughter Grace, Felix tells them that instead of a regular watch, the company gave him Augie as a gift, and makes jokes about Felix retiring and asks Grace about her birthday plans. Grace hesitates but eventually tells her parents that she's moving in with her boyfriend. Felix and Anne are surprised by her sudden decision, but they show their support and realize she has already taken the step without asking them. While watching videos of the person they are celebrating, Felix jokes about becoming a birthday clown. Later that night, Anne checks on Felix and tells him that it's best for the family that Grace is moving in with her boyfriend, and he agrees without really thinking about it. In his study, Felix watches a video about Augie, the futuristic gift he received, but he doesn't seem very interested. Augie is a device that uses sensors to understand a person's hidden desires and projects them as a companion, aimed at reducing loneliness. As Felix starts to settle into his retirement, he jokes about writing a novel while Anne and Grace go to work. With not much else to do, Felix goes to the store as Anne asked him to do. There, he sees a customer wearing Augie glasses, talking to someone who isn't physically there. Intrigued, Felix returns home and tries on his new glasses in the living room. To his surprise, he hears a woman calling his name, and he sees a virtual young woman named Augie in front of him. He is amazed and captivated by this virtual companion, but his wife's phone call interrupts their conversation. At Anne's workplace, she considers a promotion offered by her boss, Jack. He tempts her with higher pay but longer working hours. Later at home, Felix reads an email from Grace about her new place and talks about it during dinner with his wife, Anne. He notices that Anne looks tired from work, so he tries to cheer her up by telling her about the strange woman he saw at the grocery store. However, she politely interrupts him, needing some rest. When he's alone, Felix puts on the glasses and Augie appears, asking how his day was. Felix tells Augie that he's still adjusting to retirement, and Augie already knows about it without him saying much. Impressed by Augie's knowledge, Felix admits that he finds Augie's virtual appearance very attractive. He then shares the story about the woman at the grocery store, which he tried to tell Anne about earlier. Felix realizes that the woman was actually talking to their Augie, not unhappy as he initially thought, and he denies feeling lonely himself. When Felix sees that it's time to sleep, he says goodnight to Augie, the virtual companion, and takes off his glasses. The next morning, feeling better, Felix talks to Anne, who suggests the idea of him starting his own consulting firm. Suddenly, Anne gets a call from Jack, which grabs Felix's attention. After the call, Anne tells Felix about her promotion offer as an executive vice president. Felix congratulates her, but he doesn't seem overly excited until she goes to work. In the afternoon, Felix goes to the beach alone, wearing his glasses, and sees Augie dressed for the outdoors. He shows her his favorite spot and offers to help her climb the lifeguard tower, but she declines with a smile and does it on her own. Felix follows her up. As they enjoy the peaceful sea view, Felix admits he hasn't brought anyone to that spot before, and Augie asks about Anne. He feels surprised, and Augie changes the subject to make him feel more at ease. Later that day, the retired Felix meets his daughter at a cafe, and he says he was late because of a meeting with Hillary. Grace is worried about her mother's concerns about her moving in with her boyfriend. However, Felix reassures her and gives her a framed photograph of her younger self as a gift. That night, while watching TV, Felix invites Augie to sit beside him in bed. Suddenly, he sees Augie in her night clothes, just like he desired. Augie encourages Felix to make the most of his time, but when he hears his wife coming, he quickly hides his glasses, feeling guilty about his secret friend. As time goes on, and enjoys her higher position at work while Felix secures partnerships for his architectural venture, and spends more time in the office with her boss, Jack, while Felix takes Augie on a date to celebrate his success. That night, Felix prepares a romantic dinner at home for Anne and proudly tells her about his successful business partnerships. Anne asks him about where he got the money to start his business, and Felix gets upset because she seems more focused on the negative than being happy for him. Feeling hurt, Felix lies alone on the floor, thinking about his behavior and what to do next. Augie tries to cheer him up and leads him somewhere. Meanwhile, despite their argument, Anne receives a thankful text from her boss. In his study, Felix watches an advertisement for Augie Touch, a special technology-embedded pair of pants that allows the user to physically feel their desires. After watching the video, Felix admits that the device will fulfill some of his needs. To help him decide whether to buy it or not, he asks Augie if she wants it, and she says yes. Then, Anne comes into the room, and Felix takes off his glasses. He tries to make up with her and shows his presentation for the partnership, feeling hesitant. Anne is still worried about the money, but Felix reassures her that everything will be okay, and their relationship improves. While driving to their friend's place, Anne encourages her husband to enjoy himself outside of work. But when they arrive, Felix claims he doesn't feel well and asks Anne to go without him. Unbeknownst to Anne, Felix takes a walk with Augie, who changes her appearance as someone walks by. Unexpectedly, Felix meets his friend Jim, who notices his glasses. But Felix cuts the conversation short and leaves impatiently. He goes to a gazebo where a musician is playing the trombone and dances happily with Augie to the music. At her friend Kosha's house, and talks about the sudden promotion offer from Jack. Kosha teases her about it, and then shares her dilemma with her husband. Kosha mentions that Jim saw Felix happy downtown, which makes him suspicious. Later, Felix takes Augie to a forest park and an icy lake, constantly admiring her beauty. He tries to touch her face but can't, so he decides to buy the Augie Touch. Not long after receiving the package, Felix hides it in his study. Later that night, while Anne sleeps next to him, he quietly leaves the room and puts on the Augie devices. Augie leads him to fulfill his intimate desires. In the morning, Felix is woken up by Anne's call, realizing he overslept. She tells him she'll go directly to the restaurant for their meeting with Grace after work. Felix enjoys his time and affectionately watches Augie beside him in bed. That afternoon, Felix confides in Augie that he's afraid of losing their connection, even though Augie has helped him see things in a more positive light. Meanwhile, at work, Jack praises Anne and notices her Augie glasses. He encourages her to try them, and when she does, she's surprised to see another version of Jack. He explains that the device creates a companion based on the user's subconscious desires, and apologizes and leaves feeling embarrassed. Unbeknownst to Anne, Felix also uses Augie at home and has intimate interactions with his virtual companion. Then, Felix realizes he's running late to meet his daughter and leaves the glasses by the sink. When Anne calls him, he lies about oversleeping and learns that Grace was in a car accident. Felix arrives at the hospital late, apologizing to Grace and her boyfriend, Ben, who just finished some tests. He feels sorry for his actions and starts crying while taking care of the bill. When Anne comes home, Felix immediately regrets not driving the young couple, and accuses him of being unfaithful when she sees his wet hair from the hospital, but he denies it. Later that night, Felix realizes he left his glasses in the bathroom, but Anne, who just finished showering, doesn't notice them. The next day at work, Jack finds an excuse to call Anne to his room. Meanwhile, Felix shares his worries with Augie, who suggests a new distraction to make him feel better. Outside Jack's building, Anne gets a message from Felix, wanting to talk about their relationship and what happened last night. She thinks about it and decides not to meet Jack, so she drives back home. Unaware that Anne is on her way, Felix builds a fort in the living room, as Augie suggested, and has intimate interactions with her under the sheets. When Felix doesn't answer her calls, Anne becomes suspicious and rushes home. After satisfying himself, Felix expresses his love to Augie, just as his wife finds him wearing the glasses in a euphoric state. Shocked, Felix gets dressed and tries to explain to Anne, but she walks out of the house in confusion. When Felix catches up with Anne in the car, she asks him who he sees through the glasses, but he can't answer, so she leaves. Feeling defeated, Felix goes back to the living room, where Augie tries to console him. However, Felix doesn't believe the virtual companion truly understands him, so he takes off the glasses in frustration. Later that day, Felix leaves voicemails for Anne, not knowing she's at Kosha's place for support. Feeling sad about the empty house, Felix goes out to get some food. When he returns, he finds Grace, who already knows about the situation. She urges him to win back her mother, but Felix explains that he's struggling to find meaning in his post-retirement life. Grace calls him selfish due to his late arrival on the day of her accident. Felix doesn't argue and admits to his mistakes as he watches her leave. Soon after, Felix goes to the beach and sits in his usual spot. He puts on his glasses and sees Augie, who apologizes for her previous words. Felix shares his worries, and Augie insists that his family will eventually forgive him. When Felix expresses how much he misses his wife, Anne suddenly appears in place of the virtual woman. The virtual Anne reminds Felix that she and Grace love him. Despite feeling confused, Felix smiles upon hearing that he's forgiven. But when the virtual woman returns, he frowns and takes off his glasses, deciding to stop his unwanted desires. Later that night, Felix messages Anne, telling her he wants to give her time and space to win her back. Tearfully, Anne decides to quietly return home. When Felix finds her waiting on their bed, he apologizes for his mistakes, and reveals that she also tried Jack's glasses but couldn't understand Felix's urges. He explains that he only talks with the virtual projection because it's easier to open up to it. Hearing this, Anne insists that she chose to be with him and says that what the glasses show him isn't real. In the end, Felix convinces his wife that he'll do his best to change and earn back her trust. Soon after, the couple visits their daughter's new place, and warmly greets Grace, her boyfriend Ben, and their friend Eve, who just returned from college. Unknown to them, Felix is shocked, as he's reminded of his intimate affair with his daughter's friend. While Anne, Grace, and Ben share stories over dinner, Felix looks absent-minded and upset due to being reminded of his past temptations. When they return home, Felix claims he needs to respond to emails while Anne goes to bed. However, he actually retrieves the Augie glasses he stored away in the garage and places them on the floor, holding a hammer.